Hello, everybody. Welcome to Learn with V, and this is the virtual classroom. What does that mean? As you can see, I have here a blank canvas. I'm using paint, and this canvas is our virtual whiteboard. This is where I'll share to you the information or the lessons that you need to learn regarding the English language, particularly the English grammar. And so, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are doing well. And without much further ado, let's kick it off. Now, since this is the very first episode of the virtual classroom, I like emphasizing the V because that's me. Okay, enough for the rhyming. Since this is the very first episode of the virtual classroom, I might as well start off with the very first grammar rule that every English learner must know and master. Now, since this is basic, you might think, this is unimportant. It's very simple, it's very easy, this is insignificant. Well, not really. Basic means that this is the foundation, this is the core. You know this, you master this, you remember this, and every other rule in the English grammar will be easy for you to understand and remember. So, let me write that down. All right. Subject-verb agreement, rule number 1. Okay, now in this discussion, I'll be using some equations to simplify the rule and to give you a more symbolic interpretation of the rule if you're not into textual recall. So I'm going to show you some symbols and equations so they may be easily retained in your memory. So what does that mean? Let me show you. If we're talking about a singular subject, the rule says that it must have with it a singular verb. So a singular subject plus a singular verb would lead you to a correct structure, right? To simplify further, you may just say 1 plus 1 is equal to a grammatical structure. Don't mind the noises in the background. That's being authentic. Now, we further break this down into more explanation. So, if your subject is singular, the rule says that it shouldn't have an S. If the verb is singular, the rule says it must have an S. Now, this equation is where most learners get confused. Why? Because the concept of the subject is entirely different from the concept of the verb. As you can see, the subject indicates its singularity if it doesn't physically bear an S, but the verb manifests its singularity by adding the S to it. In the opposite, you may say that if there are more than one subject, meaning many, then that is the time that you add the S to it, or in other cases, they add the ES. Now, if the verb is dealing with a plural subject, the case is the exact opposite. Now it must lose its S form. It has to be in its base form or basic form. Precisely what I'm saying here is simply this one. Opposite attracts. Over. Opposites attract. If you notice, the subject opposite doesn't have an S to it. It means it is singular. And the verb has the S to it. It means it is singular. 1 plus 1. No S, with S. At the bottom part, as you notice, opposite is plural, hence opposites, and verb is also plural, hence attract. Plus S because it's plural, no S because it's plural. Now, if you try to cross over opposite to attract and opposites to attracts, it gives you the X mark, which means that is not grammatical. Excuse my handwriting. It's not grammatical. That's your indicator. The X mark is your indicator, right? So if, for instance, let me just use a clean canvas. You have a very simple sentence that says, a dog barks. I know this is elementary. Sorry, I'm catering to a generic public. So a dog barks. Obviously, you have a singular subject dog, hence you have a singular verb barks. No S. Whoops. No S with S. And if we pluralize this one by saying the dogs bark with S, no S, right? And even if you expand this sentence into a more complex one by saying, let's say, the dog, comma, walking with its owners, comma, barks at the strangers. All right, so even if you have some confusing parts here, like these phrases, which are obviously showing you some nouns that are in the plural form, these parts of the sentence are irrelevant to the agreement of the real subject dog and the verb barks. So you go back to the basic rule, one subject is for a singular verb, right? So these phrases, they may add color and meaning to the sentence, but structurally, always identify which one is the real subject and how many are there, and then always identify the real verb, and it has to be in agreement to the real subject. Always make sure that the relationship is correct. All right? So I hope that explanation of the first subject-verb agreement rule helped you. And you know what? Go to Google, look for more examples, and practice, because practice makes perfect. And also, do not frustrate yourself if you find this rule a little confusing, because trust me when I say language learning takes years. You don't gain an autonomous level overnight, so you just have to practice and apply the rules, whether it be in the written form or in the spoken form. So I'll see you again on the next episode of Learn with V, the virtual classroom. And thank you very much for watching this video presentation. Until then, much love!